So today's class will focus on the computation of your NCI or your non-controlling interest in the consolidated financial statements or specifically in the consolidated balance sheet subsequent to the date of acquisition. What we have settled before is the measurement of your NCI. If you remember, I reminded you to always check or to never forget when computing for the total consolidated equity. We have grown accustomed that the equity will just be the equity of the parent, but I've reminded you that never forget to include your NCI. And as what we have established, class, your NCI at the date of acquisition is to be measured at fair value. But on the subsequent periods, class, on the subsequent reporting dates, how will your NCI be reported? Your NCI, class, would basically be maintained using the equity method. The comparison I would give out would always be that the NCI is maintained similar to your owner's equity account in a sole proprietorship, similar to a partner's capital in a partnership, similar to a home office account in home office and branch accounting. Meaning, the same transactions affecting those accounts would be the same transactions that would affect your NCI. And what are these transactions? We will not be having investments anymore, but NCI will increase for profit and decrease with losses, and it will also decrease if there are withdrawals. But the withdrawals here will be in the form of dividends. Stated differently, the NCI account will increase if there are profits, will decrease if there are losses, and it will also further decrease if the NCI shareholders or the holders of the non-controlling shares will receive dividends. Okay? So when does it increase? It will only increase if there is a profit. Whose profit? Profit of the subsidiary. What will be the amount of increase? Will the NCI account increase equal to the amount of profit of the subsidiary? No. By how much will your NCI increase? It will only increase equivalent to the share of your NCI in the income of the subsidiary. Meaning, if the income of the subsidiary, class, is 1 million and the non-controlling interest is 25%, by how much should your NCI increase? It should be 25% of the 1 million. But again, what am I trying to say? NCI will increase if the subsidiary has a profit. But please do not make the mistake of adding the entire profit of the subsidiary to the NCI. What will be added to the NCI? It will just be the share of the NCI. Okay, the same is true if it's a loss. If the subsidiary reports a loss, the NCI will be decreased. But how much would be the amount of decrease? Will it be the entire amount of loss? No, only the share of the NCI. Where will the other loss go? It will be absorbed by the parent or the controlling entity. The same if it's a profit. If we will only increase NCI by the share of the NCI in the profit, where will the rest of the profit go? It will be recognized by the parent or the controlling entity. Okay? So again, NCI plus share in profit minus share in loss minus share in dividends. And I hope that is familiar to you, class. That's basically what you do for your owner's equity account in a sole proprietorship. That's what you do in a partner's capital, in a partnership. That's what you do to your home office account in the books of the branch. So these should not be new. What is new here is that you will be determining the share. In home office and branch accounting, all the profits and loss of the branch goes to the home office because basically the home office owns the branch. Here, whoever owns the subsidiary will have claims over the profits and losses. But why is it that the NCI will only be recording a portion of the profit or loss of the NCI? Because the NCI is not the owner of the entirety of the subsidiary. Does the NCI have a claim over the subsidiary? Yes, but only limited to its ownership interest. So its claim also in the profits and losses of the subsidiary is limited to its ownership interest. So I hope it makes sense to you. You start with NCI at fair value, plus profit minus loss, but also do not forget to deduct the share of the NCI in the dividends paid by the subsidiary. That will be treated as a withdrawal transaction. Again, it's just very similar to owner's capital, partner's capital, and even to your branch home office account. Let's try to practice with problem 15-8. But the issue here, class, is that in computing for the subsequent balance of your NCI, we need the profit or loss. But the profit or loss of the subsidiary should not be the amount. Do not always rely on the amount reported by the subsidiary. It should be the amount, it should be the income of the subsidiary in the eyes of the consolidated entity. And I cannot emphasize this enough, class. The income reported by the subsidiary will not always be the same amount that will be recognized by the consolidated entity. And again, if I'm talking about the consolidated entity, class, this is different from the parent. Here in business combination, we will be talking about three entities: the parent, the subsidiary, and the third is the consolidated entity, which is the combination of the parent and the subsidiary. So to get your consolidated income, consolidated assets, liabilities, just add the amounts of the parent and the subsidiary. But we cannot always do that because the consolidated entity will not always rely on the amounts reported by the subsidiary. So we will start with the amount reported by the subsidiary, but we will have to make adjustments to arrive at the amount that will be reported by the consolidated entity. Again, the income of the income reported by the subsidiary will not always be the same as the income of the subsidiary in the eyes of the consolidated entity. Okay, and the difference there will primarily come from differences in the fair value and the book value of the net assets of the subsidiary. But more on that later. What I want to emphasize now is that if the problem is very simple, you can simply add parent and subsidiary to get the amount that will be reported by the consolidated entity. But again, in more cases than not, the amount reported by the subsidiary will not be the same amount that will be reported by the consolidated entity. So let's have 15-8. Question here is, what is the balance of the NCI? No, this is a different. This is not asking for the balance of the NCI. This is asking for the share of the NCI in the comprehensive income of the subsidiary. And let's look for another problem. Let's have 15-12. Question here is, in the December 31, 2017, the consolidated statement of financial position, NCI should be reported at, so we are now looking for the balance of your NCI. Here, the date on the financial statements is December 31, 2017. This is 1 full year from the date of acquisition. When is the date of acquisition? January 2, 2017. Okay, what we will need is to determine the initial balance of the NCI first. And again, on the date of acquisition, the balance of your NCI would be equal to its fair value. So here, solve first for the balance, initial balance of the NCI. Okay, and how should we approach this one? Use the table class, the 3x3 table. Pascual Corporation purchased 80% of Suazon Company for 975,000. Basically, this would be the consideration for the 80% interest in the subsidiary. On this date, the book value of the net assets was 1 million. The fair value of Suazon's identifiable assets and liabilities were the same as their carrying amount, except for plant assets, which were 100,000 in excess of the carrying amount. For the year ended December 31, 2017, Suazon had comprehensive income of 190 and paid cash dividends totaling 125,000. Okay. First, let's solve for the NCI. Please write down the table in your notes na lang. Consideration for the 80% is how much? 975,000. Next, what else do we need? We need the fair value of the net assets. We know that the book value is how much? 1 million. And what does the problem tell us? That the fair value is greater than the carrying amount by 100,000. So the fair value of the net assets then must be 1,100,000. Are we going to compare 975,000 with 1,100,000? No, we will have to gross up the 975 to determine the value of the company as a whole. So please divide 975 by 80%. How much? It should be higher amount. Divide. 975 divided by 80%. 1,218,000. 1,218,000. 750. So 1,218,750. With that, class, you can complete the table already. 1,218, 750, then 975. How much then would be the presumed fair value of the NCI? How much? 243,750. But again, we cannot immediately rely on that one. We will have to check if the 243,750 is not lesser than the share of the NCI in the net assets of the subsidiary. So please complete the second row now. Multiply 1,100,000 with 80% and 20%. The 20% is 220. So the 220 there is the share of the NCI in the net assets of the subsidiary. So does that mean that how much was it? Was it 243,750? So is the 243,750 as the acceptable as presumed fair value of your NCI? Yes. Okay. So why is 243,750 not in the choices? Because we're not looking for the balance of the NCI on January 2. We're looking for the balance of the NCI on December 31. So if you're asked how much is the initial balance or the amount of NCI on January 2, our answer would be 243,750. By the way, if you were asked how much is the goodwill? 118,750. Okay. So again, our initial NCI is 243,750. Now what did I say would affect the subsequent balance of your NCI? Share in profit or loss. How much was the profit reported by the subsidiary? 190,000. But the problem is, class, the consolidated entity cannot rely on the 190,000. Why? Because the 190,000 was based on the valuations of the subsidiary. But there is one asset class wherein the valuation would be different in the eyes of the consolidated entity. In the eyes of the consolidated entity, there is an asset that has a value that is understated by 100,000. So if in the eyes of the consolidated entity class, an asset is understated by 100,000, what do you think is the impact on the depreciation expense? Or how do you think the consolidated entity views the depreciation expense of the subsidiary? In the eyes of the consolidated entity, the depreciation expense of the subsidiary is also understated. Okay, let's say, for example, although this is not realistic, the net assets is 1 million class at book value, while the fair value is 1,100,000. Assuming that's only one asset lang, and that is the equipment of, is this an equipment? A plant asset. Let's say the book value of the plant asset is 1 million, but the fair value is 1,100,000. If you ask the subsidiary, how much would be the depreciation expense on this 1 million plant assets? What will the subsidiary do? The 1 million will just be divided by 10 years. Does everyone see the 10 years? Given in the problem class. So, assuming we're only dealing with one asset here, 1 million divided by 10 will give you how much? 100,000. In the eyes of the subsidiary, that is the depreciation expense on this 1 million asset. Do you think the consolidated entity will agree that the depreciation expense is 1 million? That the depreciation expense is 100,000? No, because in the eyes of the consolidated entity, the value of this asset is not 1 million. How much is the value of this asset in the eyes of the consolidated entity? 1,100,000. So if we are to ask the consolidated entity to compute for the depreciation expense, how will the consolidated entity compute for the depreciation expense? It will be computed as 1,100,000 divided by 10. So if you ask the consolidated entity, the depreciation expense here would be 110,000. But how much was reported by the subsidiary? Only 100. So in the eyes of the consolidated entity class, the depreciation expense of the subsidiary is understated by how much? 10,000. Okay? The depreciation expense of the subsidiary in the eyes of the consolidated entity is understated by 10,000. So if the expenses is understated by 10,000 class, how do you think the consolidated entity views the net income of the subsidiary? If the consolidated entity believes that the expenses of the subsidiary are understated, that means in the eyes of the consolidated entity, the net income of the subsidiary is overstated by 10,000. So as I've mentioned, the consolidated entity cannot rely on the 190 because in the eyes of the consolidated entity, it is overstated by 10,000. So what should we do? Make adjustments to the income reported by the subsidiary. And since the misstatement here is overstatement of 10,000, what would be the adjustment here? We will deduct 10,000. Okay? So if you ask the consolidated entity how much is the net income of the subsidiary, the consolidated entity will not say 190. The consolidated entity would say that the net income of the subsidiary is 180. And it is this 180 that we will use in determining the share of the NCI. Okay, so the process would now be longer, class, when we are dealing with questions on this chapter. Okay, but before we proceed to NCI, what did we say about the status of the income of the subsidiary? It is overstated by, expense is understated. That's why income is overstated. Again, the income of the subsidiary is overstated by 10,000. Where did we get the 10,000 class? Basically, we assumed that the depreciation expense is 100 in the books of the subsidiary, 110 in the eyes of the consolidated entity. Difference of 10,000. Is there a simpler way of getting the 10,000? Yes. Just focus on the excess class. Just focus on the difference between the fair value and the book value. How much is the difference between the fair value and the book value of the net assets of the subsidiary? 100,000. And how do we call this 100,000? This is the excess of the fair value over the book value. Okay? And what do we do with the 100,000? Amortize the excess. Amortize it using straight line method for how many years? It will be amortized over 10 years. So simply divide 100,000 by 10. 10 years. And that will give you 10,000. Very simple, class. 100 divided by 10 will give you 10,000. Okay, but that will not explain to you where is that 10,000 coming from. The 10,000 really here, class, is just in the difference in the depreciation expense that will be reported by the subsidiary and the depreciation expense that will be recognized by the consolidated entity. Okay, but once you've understood that, class, you can immediately just go to 100 divided by 10. But I want you to understand where is that coming from. Okay, it will just be in the difference in the amounts reported by the subsidiary and the amounts recognized by the consolidated entity. Now, why is that important? Okay, it will give you the correct or the adjusted income of the subsidiary. Okay, and always use the adjusted income of the subsidiary, class, either to get your consolidated RE, retained earnings, or to get your non-controlling interest. Okay, so do we now have the adjusted income of the subsidiary? Yes, it is 180. Do we add 180 to the initial balance of the NCI? By the way, how much again was the balance of the NCI? 243,750. Do we add the 180,000? Do we add the entire 180,000? No, what are we supposed to add? Only the share of the NCI. Plus the 180 is the income of the total income, the total adjusted income of the subsidiary. What will be added to your NCI? Is it the whole amount? No, only the share of the NCI. If the subsidiary has an adjusted income of 180, how much is the share of the NCI? 20%. How much is 20% of 180? 36,000. And what does profit do to your NCI? Increase or decrease? Increase. So you add the 36,000. Add it to what? To the 240. Was it 243, 248? 243? 243,750. Add the 243,750 to your with 36,000. Okay. What else could affect NCI? As what I've mentioned, loss. But we already have a profit. You cannot have profit and loss at the same time. Do you follow, class? So move on to the next one. What else can affect your NCI? Share in the dividends. Did the subsidiary issue dividends, class? Yes, in the amount of 125. What's the effect of dividends received, class? Plus or minus? Minus. Do we deduct the entire 125? No, because the holders of the non-controlling interest, class, will not receive the entire 125. How much will they receive? Only 20%. How much is 20% of 125? 25,000. So deduct that from 243,750 plus 36 minus 25. That would be how much? 182? Why so small? 243,750 plus 36 minus 25. 254. And that will be our answer, class. The answer is not in the choices. Our answer would be 254,750. Okay, class. Your NCI class will just serve as the equity account of your of the holders of the non-controlling interest, class. Okay? The controlling interest has the share capital, share premium, retained earnings. Everything for the NCI will be lumped in one account under your NCI. So the more income earned by the subsidiary, the higher your NCI would be. Now, again, how much is our answer to this problem? 254,750. What are the things that we had to go through, class, to arrive at the 254,750? Number one, you should have correctly computed for the 243,750. And what is this 243,750? This is the initial balance of your NCI. And how did we solve for this one? By using our table, class. Okay. Next, what else led us to 254,750? It is the 36,000. Where did we get the 36,000? We got it from the income, but not just any income. It is the adjusted income of the subsidiary. And how did we get the adjusted income of the subsidiary of 180? By making an adjustment to the income reported by the subsidiary for the amortization of the excess of the fair value over the book value. Next is the dividends of 20,000. Where did we get 20,000? That is the share of the NCI in the 125,000 dividends paid by the subsidiary. So very crucial here is the computation of the initial balance and the computation of the adjusted income of the subsidiary. If you do not know how to compute for the adjusted income of the subsidiary, if you incorrectly compute for the adjusted income of the subsidiary, your consolidated income would be wrong, your NCI would also be wrong. Okay? Now, alternative solution, class. Alternative solution. How else can you solve for the subsequent balance of your NCI? It will simply be your initial balance plus share in the undistributed earnings, class. Okay? NCI plus share in the undistributed earnings. What do we mean by undistributed earnings? Earnings that have not yet been distributed. What are these earnings that have not yet been distributed? Those that were not yet given as dividends. Okay, so what do I mean? How much is the earnings of the subsidiary for this year? How much is the earnings of the subsidiary this year, class? The income. How much is the income of the subsidiary? It is the 180. Always use the adjusted, class. Always use the adjusted. How much is the income or the earnings of the subsidiary on the first year? 180. What are we supposed to do with the income? Give it out to your shareholders. Give it as dividends. But are you required to release everything, class? No. How much was released this year? Total dividends given this year, only 125. How much income did the subsidiary have? 180. How much was given as dividends? 125. So there's a difference of 55. How should we call this 55? This is your undistributed earnings, class. Okay? This is your undistributed earnings. How much then is the, do you get the term undistributed earnings, class? Income that is not yet given as dividends. I hope that makes sense to you. How much is the undistributed earnings? 55,000. Okay, since this is already income, but it's just that it was not yet given to us, we will still have claims. The shareholders already have claims over this 55,000, and it should be reflected in their investment account. Now, the 55,000 is the undistributed earnings of the subsidiary. Who has claims over this 55,000? All the shareholders. Does the NCI own this entire 55,000? No. How much does the NCI own in this 55,000? Only 20%. How much is 20% of 55,000? 20% of 55,000. 11,000. Basically, that would be the net change to your NCI, class. You add the 11,000 to the 243,750. The initial balance of 243,750 plus 11,000 would still give you 254,750. Okay, so what were the two ways of solving for the NCI we've discussed now? Initial NCI plus share in profit or minus share in loss minus share in dividends, or initial balance of the NCI plus share in the undistributed earnings. Now, in computing for your share in profit or in computing for your share in undistributed earnings, always use the adjusted income of the subsidiary. Always use the adjusted income of the subsidiary. I hope that's clear to you, class. Now, you can almost always, class, the first solution can be used. In almost all problems, you can use the first solution. The second solution, what is the second solution? When you are using the undistributed earnings. There are some scenarios wherein that will not be available. Okay, but there are some problems, class, wherein it can only be solved by using the second solution, class. So it's important for you to be aware of these two solutions because there are rare problems that can only be solved using the second solution. And the second solution, class, is most useful if you are asked for the balance for several periods subsequent to the date of acquisition. What do I mean? In problem 15-12, class, what are we being asked of? Subsequent balance after how many periods lang? 15-12, what is being asked? What's the reporting date here? How many periods away from the date of acquisition? Just 1 year. For problems asking for the balance 5 years, 10 years after the date of acquisition, the second solution is more useful, class. Because when we say undistributed earnings, it should be cumulative. In computing for your unearned earnings, you add all the profit from year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then deduct the dividends declared from year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to get your cumulative undistributed earnings. And by using your cumulative undistributed earnings, you would already be able to solve for the balance of your NCI, as of year 10. But if you use the first solution, class, if you use the first solution, how are you going to solve for the balance of the NCI as of year 10? How do you solve for NCI after year 10? The process would be very long, class. Initial balance plus or minus share in profit or loss minus dividends in year 1 will give you the balance as of the end of year 1. Balance as of the end of year 1 plus or minus share in the profit or loss in year 2 minus share in the dividends in year 2 will give you the balance of your NCI as of year 2. Then you do that until year 10, class. That is if you use the first solution. But if you use the second solution, add all adjusted income, deduct all dividends, the difference would be your undistributed earnings, your share in undistributed earnings, add it to the initial balance of the NCI. That will already be the balance of your NCI after the end of year 10. Okay, but hopefully we'll be able to come across problems wherein we will have to apply that one. Okay, but I hope 15-12 is clear, class. (15-16). Two questions here. How much is the balance of the considered retained earnings and NCI? Let's just focus on the NCI. Okay, and as always, the first thing we need would be the initial balance of the NCI. So how much is the initial balance, class? Please solve for the initial balance of the NCI. Or is it given? On June 30, June 30, 70%. The consideration is 700. That date, Susie had 650, 250. All of the purchase difference was related to a building with a book value of 175,000 and a remaining life of 10 years. Precis retained earnings, the CI, the comprehensive income and dividend figures are as follows. Okay. So solve for NCI. Consideration is 700. What do we do with the 700? Divide it by 70%. Okay? That will give you, obviously, 1 million. So the presumed fair value of the NCI here would be 300,000. But we will have to check pa, class. Okay? Next. Net assets at fair value. You have your equity of 650 and 250. So the equity must be 900. But that is at book value. We are told here that there's a difference between the book value and the fair value arising from a difference from the building. So that means the fair value is greater than the book value by 175. So you add 175 you add it with the 900, the fair value of the net assets is 1,075,000. Get the 30%, class. How much is 30% of 1,075,000? 800, 300, 372, 322, 322, 500. Okay, and then how much was the presumed fair value we computed? 300. But that's not acceptable, class, correct? 322. So what do we do? All the was related to a building with a book value. Wait, no. No. We're doing this wrong, class. This means that we do not have any goodwill. Sorry. This means we do not have any goodwill because all the difference is related to a building. How much was the cost, the value of the company as a whole, class? 1 million. That means if there is no goodwill because all the difference is related to a building, that means the goodwill should be 0. For the goodwill to be 0, the fair value of the net assets must also be 1 million. Okay, so that means How much then, class? Is the book value, was the book value 900, class? So there's a difference of 100,000. The difference here is 100,000. I hope you're able to find the 100,000. The problem tells us, class, that all the difference is caused by the building. So that means there will be no goodwill in this problem. So the goodwill will be 0. If the goodwill is 0, the value of the company as a whole is 1 million. That means the fair value of the net assets must be 1 million also. But we know that the book value is only 900. So that means there is an excess of 100,000. Okay, there is an excess of 100,000 difference between the book value and the fair value. Now, allocate the 1 million net assets, class. 30% would be 300, so everything is still okay. So the initial balance of our NCI would still be 300,000. Okay. Next, what would be the changes to our NCI? Share in profit or loss minus share in dividends. But were there any dividends after the date of acquisition, class? Was there any dividends at the after the date of acquisition? No. It shows there nga it was 0. The 30 there was prior to the date of acquisition. Now, how much income was reported by the subsidiary? Just focus on July to December, class, okay? Because that is when we began having interest in the subsidiary. How much income did the subsidiary report? It would be 100,000. Okay, but again, because there is a difference between the fair value and the book value, we cannot rely on the income reported by the subsidiary. What do we have to do? Adjust it so that it would reflect the valuations in the eyes of the consolidated entity. What would be the adjustment here? The adjustment here would come from the difference between the fair value and the book value. And again, as mentioned, the difference was 100,000. Because the 100,000 here is very important, class. And how are we going to amortize the 100,000 here? By the way, the 100,000 I'm talking about is not the income given in the table. Okay, the 100,000 I'm referring to is the difference between the fair value of 1 million and the book value of 900,000. Now, how are we going to amortize the excess of 100,000? It will be amortized over how many years? 10 years. So divide 100,000 by 10 years. That will give you an annual amortization of 10,000. But the problem is, class, the 10,000 is good for one whole year. When did we begin becoming owners of the subsidiary? We only started on June 30. So that means the difference would only be relevant for how many months? 6 months. So the 10,000 annual amortization would be divided by or multiplied by a fraction of 6/12. So the amortization for this year will just be 5,000. Okay, so deduct the 5,000. 100 minus 5 will give you 95,000. And the 95,000 would now be the adjusted income of the subsidiary. Okay. Now, this is now the amount that we will multiply to get the share of the NCI. Percentage-wise, how much is the share of the NCI, class? 30%. How much is 30% of how much was it? 95,000. How much? 28,500. Okay, what do you do with the share in the profit, class? Add. Add to what? The initial balance of your NCI. How much was the initial balance of our NCI, class? 300. So 300 plus 28,500 will give you how much? 328,500. So the answer here would be letter A. Just reminders lang, class. What do we need to be careful here? The determination of the excess or the difference between the book value and the fair value is not straightforward. It's not given straightforwardly, class. Okay? How did we get the 100? Very important in class. Okay, the problem tells us that all of the purchase difference was related to a building. If it tells you that, class, that means there is no goodwill. Okay, and if there's no goodwill, what does that mean? The value of the company as a whole and the fair value of the net assets are equal. We already know that the value of the company as a whole is 1 million, so that would tell us that the fair value of the net assets must also be 1 million. But we also know, based on the 650 and the 250 given the problem, that the book value of the net assets is 900. So we know that there's a difference between the book value and the fair value in the amount of 100. The mistake we committed earlier was that we thought the 175 was the difference. No, the 175 was the book value, which would lead us to another possible question, class. How much was the fair value of the building, class? On the date of acquisition, how much was the fair value of the building? The answer would be 275,000. There will be a difference of 100. Because the problem told us that all of the difference is attributable to the building. We know that the fair value and the book value differs in the amount of 100, but all the difference goes to your building. So if the problem tells you that the book value is 175, that means the fair value must be 275. Okay? Let's solve for another NCI question. I think that's it. Let's just solve for consolidated income, class. Consolidated income for still on problem 15-16. I will just discuss this with the other class. Okay, let's just end here, class.